Okay. Welcome to the 2022 Galileo trial. Everyone please rise. The Court of GHS Criminal Division is now in session. The Honorable Judge Karen Patnode presiding.
Everyone please be seated. Court is now in session. We are in this court of law today to put Galileo Galilei on trial for his violation of the Papal Injunction 1616. We will hear cases presented by both the prosecution and the defense. Today I will need to determine whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty based on only the facts and evidence provided in this case. The prosecution has the burden of proving the guilt of the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution must prove that a crime was committed and that the defendant is the person who committed the crime. However, if I am not satisfied of the defendant's guilt, then reasonable doubt exists and the defendant must be found not guilty. We will now read the charges. Ms. Pollack?
Your Honor, today's case is the Roman Catholic Church versus Galileo Galilei. The defendant is charged with the following. 1. Holding heliocentric theory. 2. Publishing and teaching non-hypothetical heliocentric theory. 3. Violating the Roman Catholic Church doctrine of geocentric theory.
Thank you, Ms. Pollack. Is the prosecution ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
We will now hear the opening statements presented by both the prosecution and the defense. Attorneys for the prosecution, please come forward to present your opening statement.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Judge Patnode. We are here today in the case of the Roman Catholic Church versus Galileo Galilei. My name is Rory Cronin Townsend, and I am here with my co-counsel Sam Gibson and Eric Badillo. Today, we will be proving that Galileo Galilei violated the instructions of the Roman Catholic Church. The injunction of 1616 explicitly forbade Galileo from holding, teaching, or defending heliocentric theory, or the theory that the Earth moves around the sun. Despite these instructions, Galileo published his book, Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems, in 1632, which clearly discussed heliocentrism in a non-hypothetical way, violated church doctrine, and demonstrated that Galileo held the heliocentric belief. We will call 4 witnesses to prove our case. First, Tommaso Caccini, a devoutly religious monk, will testify that heliocentric theory violates the doctrine of the Roman Catholic Church. Next, Pope Paul V, who ordered the injunction of 1616, will discuss the injunction for the court. He will explain the terms of the injunction and the ways Galileo violated those terms. Pope Urban VIII, who was head of the church at the time that Galileo published his book, will testify regarding his relationship with Galileo. The court will hear from Urban that Galileo violated his direct instructions that he was allowed to publish his book as long as it was kept hypothetical. Finally, Cardinal Bellarmine will prove that Galileo's work was challenging church authority. We plan to introduce written evidence in the form of excerpts from Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems written by Galileo Galilei, to show the court proof of Galileo's actions and beliefs. We ask that you listen carefully to the testimony presented, and you will see that Galileo Galilei is guilty of holding heliocentric theory, publishing and teaching non-hypothetical heliocentric theory, and violating the church doctrine of geocentric theory. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Attorneys for the defense?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Judge Patnode. My name is Chris Bostrom, and I am here with co-counsel Caitlin Phillips and Sam Santos, representing Galileo Galilei, who has been wrongfully charged with violating church doctrine by teaching heliocentrism and publishing non-hypothetical theory. During this trial, we will prove just how wrong these charges are. We will prove how manipulative the church is and how they gave him permission to write the dialogues concerning the two chief world systems, but are now going back on that claim. We will present 5 witnesses to provide sturdy evidence in order to acquit Galileo. Our first witness, Nicolas Copernicus, will explain the science behind heliocentrism and geocentrism. Our next witness, Johann Kepler, will describe the relationship with Galileo leading up to the injunction. Next, Benedicto Castelli will provide an inside look of Galileo with his relationship as an apprentice and a friend of Galileo. We will then present Galileo's daughter, Marie Celeste, who will follow up with why Galileo was such a holy man. Lastly, we will call to the stand the great scientist and devout Catholic Galileo himself. We will also provide the court with evidence in forms of scientific diagrams and legal depositions. With these witnesses, you will get into the mind of Galileo and why he believed he was safe to write the dialogue. You will see that he is not guilty of these charges, but rather believing in a promise that had been broken.
Thank you. We will now begin our presentation of witnesses. The prosecution will present their first witness. Prosecution?
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Tommaso Caccini to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Other one on here. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Can you please just state your name for everyone again?
My name is Tommaso Caccini.
All right, Mr. Caccini. So what do you do?
I am a monk at a Dominican monastery.
And how long have you been a monk?
I have been in and out of Dominican monastery since the age of 12 and committed myself to a Dominican monastery at the age of 15.
So you've been studying for a while.
Yes, a very long time.
And do you know anything about heliocentric theory and Copernican theory?
Yes, so the heliocentric theory is that the Earth revolves around the sun.
And this heliocentric theory conflicts with church doctrine, correct?
Absolutely.
And how does it do that?
So in Joshua 10:13 and Isaiah 40:22, it is in clear contradiction of church doctrine.
So Joshua 10:13, so the sun stood still in the midst of heaven.
That is a miracle performed by God.
Got you. And how do you feel about this Galileo?
Galileo is a devout Christian, but his views on the Copernican and heliocentric theory are in direct contradiction to his faith.
And his books, his teachings, have they caused many people to question the church and the Bible?
Yes, Florence is full of Galileans, people that believe the same views as Galileo.
Objection relevant.
Sustained.
No further questions.
Does the defense wish to cross-examine?
We do, Your Honor.
So sorry.
So you are known as a scandal maker amongst peers, correct?
You could say so.
And you do acknowledge that Galileo was a devout Catholic.
Yes.
Did you claim that Florence was full of Galileites?
Yes.
Galileans. And that Galileo was the only one being charged with this?
Yes, but we are trying to set a precedent for people that go against church doctrine and the Holy Scriptures.
Okay, no further questions.
Does the prosecution have a redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. The witness may step down. Prosecution may call its second witness.
The prosecution calls Pope Paul V to the stand.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. All right, Pope Paul V. What is your full name?
I was born Camillo Borges, but I now go as Pope Paul V.
Okay. And so you ordered Cardinal Bellarmine to issue the injunction of 1616, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And could you give us just a brief summary of what the injunction is?
To sum it up, it is that no one shall hold, teach, or publish the Copernican or heliocentric theory.
And why did you publish this? Why was this published?
My main goal was to prevent the spread of the Copernican theory, as I feared that those that succumbed to it would spend eternity in damnation.
Specifically Galileo.
At that moment in time, yes, specifically Galileo.
Your Honor, I'd like to present Exhibit A.
Thank you. Does the defense have a copy of Exhibit A?
No.
Okay.
Okay. You know, I'd just like him to read that, actually. Okay. Okay, can you just read just the highlighted part, please?
To this end, I have taken the Copernican side in the discourse, proceeding as with a pure mathematical hypothesis, and striving by every artifice to represent it as superior to supposing the earth motionless.
And this is Galileo
Yes,
speaking?
Galileo.
Okay. And you say Galileo couldn't hold heliocentric theory. Your Honor, I'd like to present Exhibit B, the definition of the word hold.
Thank you.
So, in your own words, what does hold mean?
To pertain a belief in one's mind.
And this quote right here, the one you just read, Galileo is clearly saying that he still holds the Copernican side in the discourse, correct? That's true.
Yes, that is correct.
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
No further questions.
Does the defense wish to cross-examine the witness?
We do, Your Honor.
Did you assure Galileo that he would not be put on trial?
I assure that he would be protected from persecution for publishing as long as I may live.
Could you explain why you decided to protect Galileo from the Roman Inquisition?
To clarify, there was nothing really to protect him from. They never had plans to execute him or anything like that, like imprison him.
Do you know who Ignatius of Loyola is?
Yes.
Could you explain who he is to the judge?
He is the founder of the Society of Jesus, also known as the Jesuits.
Did you declare Ignatius of Loyola a saint?
Yes, I did.
So you openly supported a founder of a group of people that believed in the practical uses of Copernican theory?
Yes, I did make a saint out of St. Ignatius of Loyola because he founded the most intellectual organization inside the church. And to clarify, the Jesuits did not necessarily believe in the Copernican theory. The only aspects they found useful of their research was the phases of Venus, and that is to promote the geoheliocentric theory, which they adopted in 1616.
So heliocentric theory and geocentric theory can coexist if held suppositionally?
I mean, I guess, but
No further questions.
Okay.
Any redirect by the prosecution?
No further questions. Nope, no redirect.
The witness was excused. The prosecution can call its third witness.
The prosecution calls Pope Urban VIII to the stand.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Could you please state your full name for the court?
I was really known as Maffeo Barberini, but now I'm known as Pope Urban VIII.
Thank you. And as Pope, that makes you the head of the Roman Catholic Church. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And as the head of the Roman Catholic Church, do you believe that scientific advances can coexist with the teachings of the Church?
I do. Scientific advances can coexist with the teachings of the Church, as long as they don't go against the Church. Church and the Bible take precedence over science. God could have made this world any way he wanted, but he strictly made it this way.
So you're saying that science can exist, or certain scientific theories can exist, as long as they are held hypothetically, or else they go against the Church's teachings?
Correct.
And is heliocentric theory one such theory?
No.
So you're saying that heliocentric theory can be held, if not hypothetically?
It can be held hypothetically, as long as it doesn't go against the Church.
So as long as heliocentric theory is kept hypothetically, it's okay.
Correct.
What was your relationship like with Galileo Galilei?
We were friends. I met Galileo before I was Pope, while I was still Cardinal Bellarmine. We met in 1610 when he returned to Florence, and our relationship continued until after I became Pope in 1623.
In what way did your relationship continue?
Stayed friends and held meetings.
So you held meetings with Galileo?
Correct.
Did you ever discuss heliocentric theory with Galileo?
I had held 6 meetings with Galileo, talking about his views and thoughts on science. At times during these meetings, heliocentric theory was brought up.
What did you discuss with Galileo pertaining to heliocentric theory?
His views and thoughts on the matter.
Could you repeat that?
His views and thoughts on the matter.
Okay, and did you give Galileo permission to publish as long as he kept heliocentric theory hypothetical, knowing his views?
Correct. I gave Galileo permission to write his book, Dialogue Concerning Two Chief World Systems, as long as he kept concurrent thought, heliocentric theory, hypothetical.
What did you mean when you said hypothetical?
When I told Galileo to write in the concurrent thought in a hypothetical way, I envisioned that he would not do so in a factual matter.
Okay. Because this goes against church doctrine?
Correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I would like to submit as evidence a quote from Galileo Galilei's 1632 book, Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems. Would you please read for the court the highlighted section?
Secondly, the celestial phenomena will be examined, strengthening the Copernican hypothesis until it might seem that this must triumph absolutely.
So when Galileo wrote that he would be examining the heliocentric or Copernican hypothesis to prove that it must triumph absolutely, would you say that that was hypothetical?
No, it was not hypothetical. It strictly goes against what I told him not to.
Thank you. And when Galileo's book came out, what did you think?
I recognized it as a threat to the church and myself. He strictly went against my wishes to keep the Copernican theory hypothetical, even arguing things I told him not to.
So when he was arguing against views that you had relayed to him in your meeting as friends and arguing against those views in his book?
Correct.
Did you feel that this was challenging your authority?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the defense wish to cross-examine?
Do, Your Honor. Is it true that you were accused of nepotism?
I cannot recall.
Is it true that you did not read his work?
No, I read portions.
Portions, but not the entire thing?
No.
Okay. Is it so? You also acknowledge that he wouldn't go to trial.
Correct.
Okay. No further questions.
Redirect by the prosecution.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
The witness is excused. Prosecution may call its final witness.
Your Honor, I call Lord Cardinal Bellarmine to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Other book. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Would you state your name and position, please?
San Roberto Bellarmine. I go more by Robert Bellarmine, and I am a Cardinal Inquisitor of the Roman Catholic Church.
So, would you say you're a man of science?
Yes, I am. I am very interested in astronomy and the telescope, but I have since become more pious and gone away from science.
What made your views change?
I have found that recent scientific theories have conflicted with the Bible.
And church doctrine takes precedence over science?
Yes, of course. I believe that church doctrine, established well over thousands of years, takes precedent over a theory that is incomplete.
What was your relation to Galileo?
Me and Galileo were set to meet after the injunction, but then the injunction occurred, so we ended up talking about that. I had also received several reports about Galileo before then and had a file about him.
So you would say you're familiar with his work?
Yes, very much so.
In your eyes, was this work concrete?
No, I do not believe it was concrete. The mathematical proofs weren't there, and the work about sunspots could also prove Tycho Brahe's geocentric theory.
So it was wrong of him to draw the conclusion with insufficient evidence?
Yes, I do believe so.
But did he still try and challenge the church's authority with his work?
I think he did. I told him, when I gave him the injunction notice, that he can keep the theory of Copernican theory as long as he has it hypothetical.
So, as of now, would it be possible to try and prove it?
Not right now. The technology we have is just not advanced enough. In the coming years, if there are more theories about geocentric or heliocentric with further technology, then maybe then can it be proven. But right now, we simply do not know. But we do know is that the Bible has told us that the sun revolves around the earth.
And that there is insufficient evidence to prove otherwise?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the defense wish to cross-examine the cardinal?
We do, Your Honor.
Who did you work for?
I'm in the service of the Pope, the Church, and the people of this world.
Did you yourself organize the Inquisition against Galileo?
I was a proponent of it. I helped compile a case against him, but in total there were 11 votes in the injunction of 1616, and I was asked by Pope Paul to notify him of it.
Do you understand heliocentric theory?
Yes, I do. I understand it is a theory that revolves around the idea that the sun is revolved by the Earth and other planets.
Did you maintain that Galileo remained hypothetical?
No.
Did you also assure him that he wouldn't go to trial?
No.
Did you state that Copernican theory could be held or defended?
As long as it remains hypothetical, yes.
You also claim that the theory could be taken and used suppositionary?
If you mean hypothetical, yes it can.
I also have a quote that you said, and I want you to confirm or deny. Did you say the following quote, "I say that it seems to me that Master Paolo Antonio Foscari I say that it seems to me that your paternity and Mr. Galileo are proceeding prudently by limiting yourselves to speaking suppositionally and not absolutely.
Should I say she's leaving?
I believe that.
Objection, Your Honor, on terms of leading the witness.
No further questions.
Sustained. Redirect by the prosecution.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
The witness is dismissed. Does the prosecution rest?
The prosecution rests, Your Honor.
The defense will now present its witnesses. Defense, please call your first witness.
Your Honor, could we actually have a recess, please?
A 2-minute recess is granted for the defense. Court is now in session. The defense, please call your first witness.
We would like to call Nicolas Copernicus to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Who are you?
I'm Dr. Nicolas Copernicus, a mathematician, astronomer, and a Catholic canon in Krakow.
Do you know who Ptolemy is?
Yes, of course I do. Ptolemy was the Roman mathematician who first formulated how a geocentric world would work.
Do you know when he discovered the theory of geocentrism?
Yes, I do. He worked throughout the 2nd century AD.
So then, at the time the Old Testament was written, there was no geocentric theory published?
No, there was not.
Can you explain your heliocentric theory to the court?
Well, my heliocentric theory, as you see here, I don't recognize this theory.
We'd like to insert Copernicus's theory as evidence with this diagram.
Accepted.
Anyway, my theory is that the sun, seen here, lays at rest at the center of our world, and all of the planets, Earth included, revolve around it.
Do you believe this to be true?
I do believe this to be true.
Did you make any scientific discoveries?
Well, I did do some work calculating the observed diameter of the moon, but with my heliocentrism, I was simply expanding on the work of others.
If you only expanded on others' theories, does that mean the ideas were already out there?
Why, yes. Even the Pythagoreans, as I remember, formulated a system where Venus and Mercury traveled around the sun, whereas all the other planets continued around the Earth.
If they were already out there, does that mean anyone could have come along and solved the puzzle for heliocentric theory?
I do believe that, yes.
You published a book too, correct?
Yes, it is titled On the Revolutions of the Celestial Spheres.
Did anyone help you with it and publish it?
My pupil Redicus, he helped me, but also I was encouraged expressly to publish it by the Cardinal of Capua and the Bishop of Culm.
What happened after it was published?
Well, I'm sorry to say that the first thing that happened after it was published was that I died. But I hear that after my untimely demise, my book was first pulled from circulation by church censors
Objection.
and then banned.
Lack of personal experience or knowledge.
Sustained.
No further questions.
Does the prosecution wish to cross-examine?
We do, Your Honor. Would you consider yourself to be religious?
I'm a Catholic canon. Of course I consider myself religious.
Okay, so you do follow the Roman Catholic Church, is that correct?
I do.
Did you find your scientific discoveries to contradict your religion?
Such a thought never crossed my mind. They seem to me to be completely in concert.
Were there any express orders from the church forbidding you to look into heliocentric theory that you violated?
I do not believe so, no.
And at the time that you were looking into heliocentric theory and publishing, how many other people were looking into the work?
Objection, relevance?
I would like to, Your Honor, this is relevant for the charge of teaching, whether Galileo was teaching or not, and how this relates to Galileo's case.
I'd like to remind the prosecution that Copernicus is not on trial.
That objection is sustained.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect by the defense?
No, we're good on this one.
The defense can call its next witness.
Your Honor, we would like to call Johann Kepler to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please state your name for the court?
My name is Johann Kepler. I am a German astronomer who studied the solar system and one of Galileo's few closest colleagues.
So it is true that you worked very closely with Galileo on the observations of the sun and the earth.
Yes, that is true. Every time he made a discovery, I would demonstrate it.
I would like to submit the 1605 Kepler diagram to the court. If it's not, it's this. Okay.
Accepted.
Can you tell us what you discovered using the diagram?
Yes, I can. With Galileo's help, I delivered the theory that the Earth and the planets revolve around the sun in elliptical orbits. In my work, Harmony's World in 1619, I discovered the heliocentric distances between the planets, and before I died, I also delivered the discovery that Mars's orbit was elliptical.
How often would you say you spoke to Galileo?
I say I spoke to Galileo every time we received each other's newest work and how we were amazed by our discoveries. The only known documents are the letters of 1797, where Galileo received a copy of my work. Harbingers concern the inquiries of the universe and also the containing the world mystery. And in 1610, when I received a copy of his work, Starry Wonder.
No further questions.
Does the prosecution wish to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. Okay. Mr. Kepler, Are you a member of the Catholic Church?
No, I am a Lutheran.
So, do you consider yourself very religious?
I was training to become a Lutheran priest, so yes.
What made you get away from that?
My love of science.
And would you say your love for science got in the way of your belief in God or the Church?
No, I would not.
Okay, no further questions.
Any redirect by the defense?
No redirect at this time.
This witness is dismissed. Defense can call its next witness.
We would like to call Benedicto Castelli to the stand, please.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Who are you?
My name is Benedicto Castelli. I am a professor of mathematics, an abbot of many monasteries, as well as studier and author of hydraulics.
What is your connection to Galileo?
Galileo is a very good friend of mine, but who's actually my professor first.
Did you hold the same beliefs as Galileo?
Strongly. Galileo and I both were firm believers in the heliocentric theories, and with my education level, I would seem to believe that my beliefs are the truth, if not extremely close to the truth.
So you are a holy man that works with heliocentric theory?
That is correct.
Were you prosecuted for holding those beliefs?
I was not, even though I was an open believer and supporter of Galileo's theories.
So you held the same beliefs on heliocentric theory, but have not been punished for it?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
So do I just stop now then? No. All right. What else did you study with Galileo?
So Galileo and I mostly studied the heliocentric system together, but I also offered him suggestions on his studies of the sunspots.
Did Galileo acknowledge scripture to be true?
On multiple occasions, Galileo had admitted that the scripture was entirely true.
Does his book Dialogues concerning the two chief world systems present heliocentric theory hypothetically? Theory absolutely, sorry. That was
He
my
never presented the theory absolutely. He presented multiple different theories on the universe and led the interpretation up to his readers.
Go with it. All right, let me... No, I have a paper. All right. Do you have proof that the sun has spots?
Yes, there is evidence that the sun has spots.
Your Honor, I would like to present evidence A.
Accepted.
Is it true that the church doctrine believes the sun to be perfect?
It is true that the church believes that the sun is absolutely perfect in every state.
So it is logical to assume that the church doctrine could be wrong because the sun looks perfect from a distance.
That is correct.
It is logical to assume that the church could be wrong about other things because of how they are seen.
Objection, irrelevant.
Overruled. I'd like the witness to answer.
Based on the previous evidence presented, seeing how the church was wrong, it is logical to assume that the church could be wrong about other things.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination by?
Prosecution requests a recess, Your Honor.
Granted. 2 minutes recess. Court is now back in session. I'd like to remind the witness that you are still under oath. Cross-examination by the prosecution of this witness.
Yes, Your Honor.
start with, in Galileo's letter, did he ever contradict the Bible?
I'm going to need reference to which letter, as we have wrote very many letters back and forth.
In the letter of 1616?
I'm going to need more than just a year, as we are very close friends. I've written many letters back and forth.
Okay, I can't present the letter, not allowed to right now, but in Galileo's teachings, would you ever say that he judged the Bible in your letters?
I would never say there's any judgment towards the Bible, but he was a firm enforcer on the fact that the Bible is up to interpretation of its followers.
Is that not going against the word of the Church and the Pope's authority by saying you can interpret it in any way you want?
It was left up to the interpretations of the people, and he was a strong believer in as long as you're supporting the Church, you can interpret it as ever you may please.
Isn't that against the Church?
Not in his eyes, no.
Then against the eyes of the Church it is.
It could be seen at that way, possibly.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect by the defense.
No further questions.
This witness is dismissed. Defense, please call your next witness.
The defense would like to call Sister Maria Celeste to the stand.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Please state your name for the court.
My name is Sister Maria Celeste. I was born in Virginia, Galilei.
What is your relationship to the defendant?
Galileo Galilei is my father. I still write to him very frequently. He will occasionally help out at the convent where I live. In exchange, I will try to take care of him. I send him medicines when he is sick. I've also attempted to mediate his somewhat troubled relationship with my younger brother, Vincenzio. We are very close, but I don't see him very often.
Can you describe your father's character for the court?
I know my father to be a good and conscientious man. He has continued to care for my siblings and I well into our adulthood. I also know him to be devoutly religious. He placed my sister Livia and I in a convent when we were 13, and I know that in times of trouble he will often turn to prayer or the Bible.
So you are a nun?
Yes, I'm a nun of the Clarician order.
How would you describe your religious order?
The Clarician order was founded based on the teachings of St. Clare, who was inspired by the teachings of St. Francis. We're very similar to Franciscan monks in that we refuse all material luxuries and have a strong mission to help the community around us.
You mentioned receiving help from the defendant. What sort of help did you receive?
The defendant, my father, will often fix windows when they break. He has repaired our clock on more than one occasion. He will send us food.
Would you call his donations materialistic?
No.
Did accepting them violate your vows as a nun?
No, what he provided to our convent was basic necessities. The order does ask that we live a life of poverty, but not one of physical pain. The conditions at our convent are especially poor even for general Clarician convents. The buildings can become deathly cold during the winter. The nuns are often falling ill. I know of 2 instances where nuns have attempted suicide because of the horrible conditions. If these conditions are driving us towards suicide, which is considered by some to be the ultimate mortal sin, then this is not the poverty our God demands of us. I believe my father's donations were not so much tempting us to extravagance as in fact better helping us serve our God and community.
Did your father ever mention his troubles with the church?
I am aware that he had them, but I cannot testify to the extent or nuance of them.
Do you believe your father's theories?
I cannot really say. I've only read some of the pages of his book, and I do not understand the science of all of it, but I know him to be very intelligent, and if he says it's true, I'm likely to believe that it is.
Do you believe your father violated church doctrine?
I believe my father to be a devout man who would never willingly go against church doctrine. From what I have read, his book also appears to be mostly hypothetical, which I know the church has condoned in the past.
Would you call your father a good Catholic?
Yes.
No further questions.
Does the prosecution wish to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. Maria Celeste, so You've been a nun your whole life, yes?
From the age of 13, I took the veil when I was 16 years old.
And safe to say you studied the Bible intensely,
I am a nun, of course I've studied the Bible intensely.
but not any scientific endeavors.
I've picked some up from my father, having been raised in his care and having read parts of his book, but I was not trained as a scientist.
So, are you aware of the contradiction between your father's theory and church doctrine?
I've already answered that question.
So,
The court would like to remind the witness of hostility is not welcome in this court.
I am not aware of the full extent of my father's theory, but I do not believe that it violates Catholic doctrine from what I know of it.
no further questions.
Any redirect by the defense?
I wasn't going to ask those.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
The witness is dismissed. The defense, please call your final witness.
We would like to call Galileo Galilei to the stand.
The court would also like to remind the gallery of the respect this court deserves.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you please state your name for the court?
Galileo Galilei.
What do you do for a living?
I am a scientist.
Where did you study mathematics and astronomy?
I studied at the University of Pisa and then later at the University of Padua. And I was raised in a monastery as for my young education.
Is it true that you built your own telescope?
I did. Unlike common telescopes, which can only magnify things by 3 times, my telescope can magnify things by 20 times.
Is it true that you were also quite close with Pope Urban at your time at the University of Pisa?
I was quite close with Pope Urban. We studied together and went to many scientific talks.
What did you say during those talks?
During the scientific talks we went to at university, we just talked about astronomy and the way the solar system is set up.
Is it true that you once came under fire from the church for your opinion on floating bodies?
It is, and Pope Urban came to my defense and took my side. As a thanks to him, I dedicated one of my books to him.
Do you think you lead a holy life?
I do lead a holy life.
Were you raised Catholic?
I was raised Catholic. My first school was in a monastery.
Have you followed the church doctrine your entire life?
I have, and I have read the Bible.
Do you believe your heliocentric theory to be contrasting church doctrine?
No.
How many children do you have?
I have 3 children.
And what do they do for a living?
One is a Lutenist and 2 are nuns. The 2 daughters are nuns.
Do they lead very holy lives?
They do.
Would you...
Objection irrelevant.
Overruled.
Would you say that you believe in the Bible?
I do believe in the Bible, yes.
Does the Bible mention geocentric theory?
The Bible does not explicitly mention geocentric theory.
Could you explain what the Bible says on terms of geocentric theory?
In the book of Joshua, the Bible states of a battle where God forced the sun to stop moving so the battle could last longer. The church has interpreted this as evidence for geocentric theory, but like I said earlier, the Bible does not explicitly mention geocentric theory.
Is there a chance that the Bible can be misinterpreted?
Definitely. Early Catholics believed that the hand of God was an actual appendage that lowered from the skies. Now we know that the hand of God is actually just more of the will of God. So yes, interpretations can err.
Why do you think you're here?
I think I'm here because the Catholic Church found issue with my book, Dialogue on the Two Chief World Systems.
And this dialogue, it was just a conversation?
Just a conversation between people in a book discussing the way the solar system could be set up.
Is it designed to be quite literal?
It is a conversation about different ways that the solar system can be set up. It does not take one theory, geocentric or heliocentric, and does not put it over the other. It simply offers an explanation of both theories and does not hold one to be more true than the other.
How many characters are in this book?
There are 3 characters. Their names are Salvitia, Simplio, and Sacrido.
Would you say that the book is hypothetical as a whole?
It certainly isn't an absolute. It just offers hypothetical interpretations of the solar system.
Are any arguments misleading or one-sided at all?
No, both arguments are displayed fully with both pros and cons of either argument.
How did you get this book published?
I have a publisher friend, Niccolo Riccardi.
Did anything else have to go into publication, or did your publisher just release it?
It had to go through multiple censors in the church.
How many times did it have to go through?
Twice.
Twice, 2 times. Do you believe that writing the dialogues you would be helping the church?
I hoped I would. I hope my dialogues would explain a different theory than the one currently adapted by the church, not as a way to one-up the church or make it seem bad or wrong, but just as an explanation of a differing theory.
Going back to Pope Urban, you had conversations about him about heliocentrism in the dialogue, correct?
Could you restate the question?
You had conversations with Pope Urban about heliocentrism in discussing your book, the
I
dialogue.
did. In 1623, shortly after he was canonized, I met with him 6 times to discuss heliocentrism and other scientific matters.
And what did you talk about in those specific meetings?
We talked about how if I were to publish heliocentric theory, I'd have to do it hypothetically, which I did.
Did you ever admit to holding heliocentric theory?
I did before the injunction.
And what about after the injunction?
After the injunction, I have not held Copernican theory or heliocentric theory.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination by the prosecution.
The prosecution would like to request a recess.
This is the final 2-minute recess, so granted. Court is now in session. We'd like to remind the witness you are still under oath. Prosecution.
In your opinion, does heliocentrism contradict the Bible?
I believe that the heliocentrism contradicts the church's interpretation of the Bible.
So you're saying that that heliocentrism does go against the teachings of the church,
Yes.
and that the church explicitly told you not to teach, publish, teach, defend, or hold heliocentric theory.
Objection, leading question.
I'm allowed to ask leading questions on a cross-examination, Your Honor.
How about you let the court decide first?
Apologies, Your Honor.
The objection is overruled, and you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Could you restate the question?
The church gave you explicit directions not to publish, hold, teach, or defend heliocentric theory as long as it was not hypothetical in a concrete way.
That is correct.
And you are claiming that your book was not hypothetical, or was hypothetical. Apologies.
Yes, my book was hypothetical.
Could you please read the highlighted section from Exhibit C, which is from your introduction to the dialogues concerning the 2 chief world systems, in which you lay out your arguments for the readers?
Yes. Secondly, the celestial phenomena will be examined, strengthening the Copernican hypothesis until it might seem that this must triumph absolutely.
Until it might seem.
Until it might seem that it will triumph absolutely.
And you're saying that might makes it the whole thing hypothetical.
I discussed Copernican theory in my book, not as a way of showing that it was right, but just as a way of presenting the theory. So I figured I might do it in a way that would make it seem plausible, as is my job as a scientist, to examine the natural world and elaborate that to my readers.
You claimed that in your book you were arguing both sides equally. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So when you said the celestial phenomena will be examined, strengthening the Copernican hypothesis, you're saying that was not you intending to strengthen the Copernican hypothesis above geocentric theory?
I was strengthening the Copernican hypothesis to an extent that it. I was trying to present the Copernican hypothesis in a way that was fair to the Copernican hypothesis.
You said the celestial phenomena will be examined, strengthening the Copernican hypothesis until it might seem that this must triumph absolutely.
Objection, argumentative question.
I didn't ask my question yet.
We're going to remind the prosecution, though, we're not badgering the witness, so please rephrase into the form of a question.
Okay, I'm going to drop that question. Moving on. In what language did you write your book, Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems?
Italian.
And what language did the people of Rome, outside of the church, non-educated or not highly educated people speak?
People in Italy speak Italian.
Exactly. What is the language that the people in the church speak?
Objection, relevance.
I'm going to allow a little leeway here to see where this goes. Please continue.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Members of the church speak Italian, but churches and services are conducted in Latin.
And all of the church documents and stuff are written in Latin, is that correct?
Correct.
And most books at the time were also written in Latin, is that correct?
For church use, yes.
Not only for church use, but okay. What was your motivation writing your book in Italian?
Like I said earlier, I wanted my book to offer an explanation for a differing hypothesis for the church higher-ups. I did not mean to one-up them. In my deposition, I said that if I had made the church look silly or one-upped them, then I would want my book burned and torn.
Okay. So did writing the book in Italian rather than Latin make it more accessible to the general public?
Yes.
Was your intention for the book to be accessible to the general public?
My intention was for it to be read by the church as an explanation of a differing hypothesis.
So you wrote it in Italian for the church?
Yes.
As opposed to Latin, the language that the church uses for its formal documents?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sure. Did you see how your book, Dialogue Concerning the Two Chief World Systems, violated your instructions from the church when you wrote it?
No, because I didn't think that I had violated the church's instructions.
Okay. But when the church, after you had written it, the church made it clear that they thought that you had violated their instructions?
Yes.
You know what? Prosecution requests a recess.
Denied.
Denied? No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect by the defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh my God. Chris, just unbutton it.
Technical difficulties. Technical difficulties.
Just to reiterate, how many times did you have the book pass through church censors?
Twice.
And in those 2 times, they could have censored it and stopped it from publication if they thought anything was wrong.
Correct.
And is it also true that Cardinal Bellarmine and Pope Urban said that you would not go to trial for this?
As long as I wrote my book hypothetically.
And did you write it hypothetically?
I did.
No further questions.
The witness is dismissed. Both the prosecution and the defense have now rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Please remember what the attorneys say is not evidence. However, do listen closely. In the prosecution, you may begin. Prosecution.
Yes, Your Honor. No. No more recess, right, Your Honor?
Correct. Please proceed.
Your Honor, it is clear that Galileo held heliocentrism past the date of the injunction. You have seen with your own eyes the quote from the dialogue concerning the two chief world systems in which Galileo admitted to taking the Copernican side in the discourse. And for that matter, how could a book claiming to be so unbiased, an unbiased dialogue be riddled with Galileo's true intention? It is beyond reasonable doubt that Galileo published non-hypothetical content of his heliocentric theory, going so far as to not only continually holding the idea but defending it. He used the book to argue with views stated by Pope Urban, arguing against Pope Urban's arguments under the pretense of dialogue, challenging the authority of the Church and violating the doctrine. How could someone claiming to be defending geocentrism so evidently take the stance of heliocentrism in their book? Thomas Castelli showed us how Galileo went against church doctrine. Pope Paul explained how Galileo clearly violated the injunction, which he instated. Urban confirmed how Galileo was strictly told to be hypothetical, and Bellarmine showed us how Galileo challenged the authority of the Church. And what is it to teach, Your Honor? Regardless of how non-hypothetical Galileo's book was, is it not evidence he is continuing to teach heliocentrism? Why write the book in Italian instead of Latin if it was for the Church? What knowledge will the reader gain from the book? We all know under the name of God and the Church that the sun revolves around the earth. Will the reader not be informed of this heliocentric theory, entertaining a thought that clearly goes against the word of the Church? Is this not a clear violation of Church doctrine? Your Honor, I can't see a way in which you paint Galileo as nothing but a stubborn old man with a persisting urge to challenge the Church with his teachings of non-hypothetical heliocentrism, strictly going against Church doctrine, in which he was formally warned off many times. Galileo's true intentions are evident upon examination, and Galileo must be found guilty on all charges.
Thank you. Now the defense.
As we have proved to you today, in this court, Galileo is innocent. He is not a rule breaker, but rather a godly, religious man carrying the weight of new information in a time when the scientific world was growing exponentially. We heard from 5 witnesses detailing that Galileo was a devout Catholic with no intention of going against the Catholic Church. Nicolas Copernicus explained heliocentrism and geocentrism and proved that a man can be godly and make great scientific discoveries. Johann Kepler gave us insight into heliocentric theory and his relationship with Galileo, supporting his theories. Benedicto Castelli proved that Galileo maintained his godliness while working in science and was yet another person who held similar beliefs to Galileo, yet was not persecuted for it. Maria Celeste demonstrated for the court that her father is in fact a godly and religious man who would never go willingly against the Church. Galileo Galilei proved that he is in fact a holy man who was told that he could publish his theory hypothetically by the Pope himself, and then when he did, was put on trial. Galileo has been incredibly cooperative during this process, submitting his own work to multiple censors, obtaining approval, and working with the Catholic Church every single step of the way to make sure that he did not go against them, because he had no intention of going against the Church. Additionally, Galileo was surrounded by other people who thought about and technically held the Copernican theory, including the most holy person on earth, the Pope himself, Urban VIII, who had multiple conversations with Galileo about the theory, including the conversation where the Pope granted Galileo permission to publish his book, if kept hypothetical, which it was. His whole book was in dialogue form, which presents information in a conversational manner and not absolutely. It merely presented two sides and left it up to the reader, with no side presented better than the other, and it was up to the reader to draw their own conclusions. Take these facts into consideration, free Galileo Galilei, for he has not done wrong against the Church, but he has only believed in a broken promise. That is why, Your Honor, you must find Galileo Galilei innocent of the charges against him. Galileo Galilei is not guilty. Thank you, Your Honor.
We have now heard all the testimony concerning this case. I must now determine the facts. I must decide what facts the evidence proves and then must apply the law. I may find Galileo guilty of 1, 2, or all 3 charges against him. Once again, the charges read as follows. Galileo Galilei is charged with holding heliocentric theory, publishing and teaching non-hypothetical heliocentric theory, and violating the Roman Catholic Church doctrine of geocentric theory. I have a very large task ahead of me. I will now leave the courtroom for my chambers to decide on my verdict.
All rise. All rise.
You may be seated. Upon reading the verdicts, I expect order in this courtroom. I have reached my verdict on the first charge, holding heliocentric theory. I find the defendant, Galileo Galilei, not guilty. On the second charge, publishing and teaching non-hypothetical heliocentric theory, I find the defendant, Galileo Galilei, guilty. On the final charge, violating the Roman Catholic Church doctrine of geocentric theory, I find the defendant, Galileo Galilei, not guilty. Thank you all for your service. The defendant will be detained for finding guilt on his second charge. Court is adjourned.